And we feel, on behalf of the board and myself, that it's time that we really look at this, and there's a variety of reasons. So I'm going to go through this relatively quickly and then give you an opportunity to ask some questions. I won't read it to you, but I will tell you, why are we rezoning? What's the purpose of this? Well, as we know, and if you've kept up with the happenings around our county, we're seeing pretty significant growth. We're all blessed that we are seeing some positive change in our economy, and the positive change results in movement, and we're seeing some movement into the Brazelton-Houston community, and it's growing pretty quickly. Now, I'll say we're seeing growth across our whole county, just at a higher rate there. And we're welcoming those folks, but we want to make sure that we are very prepared. Also, over the past couple of years, we've had conversations through our strategic plan. It's a unique funding mechanism at the state level. We are funded based on the numbers of students, and a base size elementary school at the state level is defined with an enrollment of 450 students. Presently, we have 3 schools that are significantly below base size. What does that mean to you as a parent? It means that your child potentially goes to a very small school, and whether you realize it or not, in some ways it's very difficult for us to offer the kind of programming that we feel like all children need to have access to. Once you get to base size, 450 or more, then it is a little more manageable to have art, music, PE, specials, STEM, the activities, the kinds of things that you saw Ms. Halley and her team talk about that happen here at East Jackson Elementary School. So, as you potentially are aware, in the past year and a half, the board has taken a very difficult situation in analyzing those 3 small schools. The 3 small schools are Maysville Elementary School, North Jackson Elementary School, and Benton Elementary School. In looking at the most efficient way to manage facilities, the conversation took place and a decision was made to repurpose Benton Elementary School. It is one of our older schools. It is definitely treasured by the Nicholson community and the families that have attended there, and they have my greatest respect. I know this was a very difficult situation, which is why we have community members getting together to think about the best way to repurpose. By the repurposing of Benton Elementary School, then we are redistributing students, which requires us to look at the entire county. If you look at the map here, you know that Jackson County has somewhat of a unique challenge or opportunity. We have 2 city school systems within us. Much of the population that we serve is actually the peripheral of the county. So there's a lot of transportation considerations. There are many different variables that we have to consider when we think about the best way to serve kids, but also be efficient about it. So with the repurposing of Benton, it allows us to get all of our schools much closer to base size. You can see there the projected and then the current enrollments. We are going to see a significant increase at East Jackson Elementary School. They will go up by about 120 to 140 students, and South Jackson will also go up. But if you look at this map, what we've basically done, I'm going to have to step away here, Mr. Vanderford, because I can't do it without me. But we've basically taken this portion and tried to reduce the size a little bit of the zones in West Jackson area because they're so much more densely populated. And so if we get a little bit more of those students pushed up to north and a few more of the north students pushed up to Maysville, and it kind of ratchets around almost clockwise. So that was our approach in terms of trying to get most of our schools to base size, and this will get us much closer based on projections. And so that's our effort. And I do want to just make a statement here and tell you that we have looked at the numbers very, very, very carefully, and I want to send a very genuine thank you to Mr. Joel Logan, who works for the Jackson County government, and he input every single piece of information that we have into a GIS system, and he mapped this out so that we would have exact numbers. Now, the thing with numbers is they really can't ever be exact because we have about a 2 to 3% variance with student population as students move and things occur. So we have a very general, solid idea, but none of us in this room know exactly how many students will walk through the doors of East Jackson Elementary because we don't know who's going to move here. We don't have exact numbers, but we are very, very close, and we know that we're going to reach closer to base size there. So Maysville, East Jackson, and South will feed into East Jackson Middle School as they do now. And West Jackson Elementary, Gum Springs, and North will continue to feed into West Jackson Middle School and Jackson County High School. So the feeder pattern pretty much stays the same. There are 2 small pockets that will be impacted, both one on the north side and one on the south side, so that there are some students who are presently zoned for North Jackson that will be moved to Maysville, and there's a small pocket of children right in what you may remember as the Triangle area that are being moved from South Jackson to Gum Springs. So that's the area right here. A pointer almost. So that area has been somewhat of a challenge, just because that's really a long way away from East Middle, and those children have been traveling on buses for quite some time. And if there's a way that we can accommodate, they drive right past Jackson County High School to go to East. Many of them will want to stay at East, and we celebrate that and support them in that, but in terms of long-term planning, it's more efficient to begin to plan that way. One of the questions that came up, we're not moving a whole lot of students out of West Elementary and Gum Springs. We're moving, approximately between Gum Springs and West Elementary, probably less than 100 kids. However, we are shifting all the way around, as I explained to you. You have to be mindful that the growth, the density is in the West community, but it's also going up 85. And North Jackson is not a large school. In fact, they will probably max out at 500. So we had to leave some growth availability for North Jackson as well. So we did move some up to North Jackson and some of North Jackson to Maysville, but we had to leave some space for the growth that's coming all the way up 85. In upper grades, as you can see here, this does not have a tremendous impact on middle and high school because it's primarily elementary school. In our analysis that Mr. Logan shared with us, there's less than 15 students at the high school level who are actually having to change from being a Panther to an Eagle or an Eagle to a Panther. So this area is very small, but this will help us over time get our schools closer to capacity. So a few quick things that you have on here. What if my kid's gone K through 11 to the high school? Can they stay? Absolutely, they can stay. And for the senior year, we're going to provide an express bus. So we'll have one go from East High to Jackson County and one go from Jackson County to East High, so that a child, if they choose to, can finish at the school of where their career has been. You will see there in the questions, we need notification so that we can plan for that from personnel purposes and so forth. What about rising 5th and 8th graders? I want to send a thank you to our advisory council, because we thought about seniors, but we didn't think about upcoming 5th graders and upcoming 8th graders, and we thought that was a great suggestion. So to ease this transition and to be thoughtful of families, we are going to allow for those folks to make that request. If you've gone to a school pre-K through 4th grade and then you don't want to go for just your 5th grade year, that's understandable. We will, however, only do that for the first year, and the transportation will not be provided. That'll be something that will have to be handled through House Bill 251. But for both sitting 4th graders and sitting 7th graders, that will be an option. What about siblings of other students? So there's a senior that gets to stay at Jackson County High School, and what about the others? We're going to handle all of those through House Bill 251, and House Bill 251 is very specific in the way that it's designed, and that's based on the capacity of the school. So we hope that we'll be able to accommodate as many people as possible, but we are rezoning. That's part of the process. So House Bill 251 is public school choice, and we are affording 2 windows in an effort to staff to accommodate your request, which is usually not the case. Normally, the House Bill 251 application is due in the summertime, and then we would accept or deny a House Bill 251 request based on available space and available programming and staffing. What we're doing is taking a window in February so that we know early. If you're one of those folks that have this interest, then it will help us in our personnel timeline to slowly transition folks without it being quite as difficult to some of the, as we've already stated, the 5th and 8th grade students. So that will be an opportunity for folks to request. Now again, it's based on capacity and space and guidelines, but it will help us. Bus routes will be published just like they have been in the past on Versatran, and so we'll be making those available at open houses. I do want to say we've met with elementary principals. They are very committed, and I got to tell you, I know that it sounds as if we celebrate a lot, but there's a lot to celebrate. We've got an amazing team of elementary, middle, and high school principals, but they've already been meeting quite a bit and looked at pockets of the county where folks are going to make transitions, and they're making plans for how to embrace students that are going to be new to their school. Starting in January, we'll be having open houses and events go on that if your child is one that's on the is expected to be rezoned, then you'll get invitations to meetings at your new school so that you can go in, be a part of the culture, get to know the families, get to know the culture of the school, and I think that will help with that process, and I want to commend our principals for being so willing to help with this process. And of course, we're going to have orientation meetings, and as we said, this is just the first of hearings, and I'll tell you, I'm a parent myself, and I have middle school students, and that's a fun time. I mean, it's just great fun. Not really. But I was a middle school principal and a teacher, and I like other people's middle schoolers better than I like my middle schoolers. But anyway, we do love kids and care about kids, and our purpose is not to be traumatic for anyone. We've got at some point to level set and make it right. So this is the rezoning area. I realize there are a couple of pockets, like I'm just going to point out the obvious because we're at East, okay? What about this area right above Commerce, right? Right here, okay? Why is that? Well, I'm just going to be honest and tell you that you've got Commerce City right in the middle, and you've got a very large zone for Maysville, but even with that size of a zone, you only end up with about 440 students in a school that will accommodate up to 800. So we've got to make the most efficient use of our facilities. I will tell you, I would be happy to have my children at any school in Jackson County. And my children went to North. They're not in elementary school anymore. But children that are going from Gum Springs or West Jackson to North, you're getting a great experience. And I think that whatever the transition is, you just embrace it. And I know there's going to be some pockets of dissatisfaction, and that's what the hearing is for, is to hear from you. But I do want you to know a lot of thought and a lot of consideration has gone into this, and we want to make sure your children have the best opportunity they can. So I believe that's all the official information, but we can take any questions and I'll tell you, like I said, in terms of numbers, we want to be able to share with you numbers, but I don't want you to hold us accountable for exact numbers because there is movement and there is rotation. So there will be, that will be evolving as we go through. So anyone that wants to come forward, you just come forward and stand at the mic if you've got some questions, and myself and the board will try to address the questions that you have as best as possible. Okay? Anyone want to come forward? Mr. Wilbanks, thank you.
Get this over with. My name's Dylan Wilbanks, and full disclosure, all my kids are hypothetical. You're not going to hurt their feelings, whatever you do. I know this is a difficult process. I do live in this area, and I, to the people who put this together, I know it's hard. I know you're going to make people unhappy, and if I'm one of them, that's okay. No hard feelings. As somebody who lives in this area, and there are a couple neighborhoods. I live in the next to last one over here, and the last one is actually cut in two. So there's a subdivision that's cut into two parts. I live in this one. And I mean, realistically, I wouldn't go to Maysville. I can't do it. Maysville, and that's not a knock on Maysville. There are schools over here I wouldn't drive my kids to either. But realistically, for somebody who lives in this neighborhood, that takes the county out of the equation as an option. Most of us, some of the people in this area work in Athens, some work in Commerce and other places. Very, very few of us in our normal travels. I might go a year without going to Maysville for any other reason. So practically, I don't know how much you can count on that area for population. And I'm not indifferent to that. I think there are people here who are already in the county school system community and want to stay a part of it. And people whose school, and particularly East, is very important to them right now. I appreciate you hearing me out. And like I said, I know this is hard work to put together, and I appreciate it.
Mr. Wilbanks, I personally appreciate your professionalism and your feedback, and anticipated some of this, and don't blame you one bit. I'll tell you that we did drive every single road that we're talking about here, and you're exactly right. It's about 9.7 miles from that area to Maysville, and it's a little over 6 miles from that area to East Elementary. Pure common sense tells you it makes more sense, and that's why there's a hearing. So we'll take that feedback. These are not final drawings. This is a proposed draft, We do have to look at numbers, and we're still working with Joel on that. But again, as I explained to you earlier, it's more of an attempt to try to balance the density versus the sparsity of our population and having facilities that are in somewhat challenging locations sometimes. And I think we've shared this before. In 2006 or 7, I believe there was a $5.4 million improvement made at Maysville. And so it's a very nice school, but certainly doesn't make it any more convenient. So I appreciate your feedback. Others? Please, yes, ma'am.
My name is Jamie Kessler, and my children go to South Jackson Elementary, and then I also have a 7th grader at East Jackson Middle School, and we fall into that triangle. And I have a question. First of all, when those numbers were looked at, were they looked at the kids who go to other systems already where we live?
Yes.
So we're really looking at a very small number that either choose to already go to West, or those of us who choose to go where we're zoned, which is South Jackson and East Jackson. So that's a little bit of information there that we, in our neighborhoods, we have people that go to different places already. And so it's just something to think about. And then I think a little bit more on the personal side of a parent that has invested 9 years into our East Jackson County, driving 10 miles, now driving 12 miles, willing to make that investment because we love it, and we love what our kids are exposed to. We love our teachers. That's just a personal side for us that we have been investing. Our children have been connecting and building relationships, especially my 7th grader, and one about to go into middle school, and then one that has 2 more years at South Jackson. So, we made that sacrifice of being on the bus a little bit longer, driving a little bit further for activities, and we're still willing to. And in fact, most of the families that are where we are still willing to make that sacrifice. So just a little input there, just a question about those numbers, but just some food for thought from a personal side of that area right there that have been a part of this community for years. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kessler. Mr. Hitzkes, do you mind going up there and pointing where the triangle is so the folks that may not be familiar? And I just want to say thank you very much. I happen to live in the triangle and have lived in the triangle for quite some time, and I am so grateful to people like you and folks who have stuck with it and stayed and become part of the Eagle Nation and really invested in South Jackson and East Middle, and really do appreciate it. You're right, that was an excellent question. We did take in the numbers of students that have gone to other places. One of the concerns is that many of the children in the triangle we have already lost to a city school system because it's more convenient. And so the effort is to provide an opportunity for us to retain these great kids who we want to be able to serve. So we can take recommendation from the board. I'm completely open. This was an attempt to try to accommodate an issue that actually has been in existence for a while now, but it seems as if many of you have assimilated and embraced an opportunity. So we did not get the whole triangle. We couldn't accommodate that many at Gum Springs, but the ones that were the furthest distance, we did try to room in. So that's taken into consideration, and we can look at options there. So I'll look to the board for that. Any other questions, concerns? I want to thank you for coming, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Chronic as the person who does, in partner with a great team, the legwork for this. Please know that we see faces of children, and as a parent, this isn't taken lightly, and your thoughts and your considerations will be taken into consideration. We have a professional obligation to do that. I'm a parent first, and I want to know how this impacts your kid. Okay, so we'll think about these things, and I'll invite you to come to the November 14th meeting if you've got some additional thoughts. And Mr. Connie, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. If there are no other questions, then we will vote to adjourn. Do I have a motion that we adjourn? And second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you.
Thank y'all for coming.